Mandy and Joe Budden exchanged shots on social media, with Mandy calling Joe a thief, possibly? Yeah, that's right. On social media, well, specifically Twitter, Mandy called out Joe Budden for his questionable business practices. So here's what happened. Mandy tweeted out something saying, listen, the $20 is worth the laughs. We really trash. Now, he's talking about the basketball game with the Joe Budden podcast, members of the show, where everybody was absolute garbage. Well, Mandy would chime in and say, hope you getting a piece of that pot. Now, this is crazy pocket watching, but also something I immediately thought when that Patreon dropped. Are members of the show getting a split because they are contributing to this piece of content? I don't know. It's a bit divisive because on one hand, hey man, you guys probably play basketball anyway. But on the other hand, there's this new stream of revenue that Joe Budden is enjoying that I don't know if members of the show are getting a piece of. And I also noticed that Ice wasn't there. Now, I know Ice is a family man. That could have been a reason why he wasn't there. But could he also have not been there because he may have not been getting compensated? Not saying that he called that out, but he was just like, I'm going to miss this. And we all know Ice is actually pretty strategic. He didn't show up on Flip Show because he didn't get paid for it. So he's pretty smart. Maybe that's why he didn't show up. But Joe Budden would respond back to Mandy and say, ain't you on a journey? Geez, LOL. Now, Joe Budden is hinting at Mandy's issues. She's currently launched a new podcast. I don't know. Something about some site. I don't even know the name of it. But anyway, she launched a podcast, and I must say, the numbers are struggling like a CD store in 2010. And Joe is basically calling out how Mandy has a propensity to start podcast after podcast. There was that women podcast, which was like the precursor to Melissa Ford's Hot and Bothered. Then there was Bridget Kelly's show with her where, what was it called? See the Thing Is? Well, See the Thing Was now. And then now she launches another podcast, which a bunch of her guests are people she knows, like Rory, Mero, and other folks on the show. I hope it works out, Mandy. It just seems very tough out here for anybody trying to make content. Good luck to you. I bid you very well in the future. And we have to zoom out here and just look at the history between Mandy and Joe Budden. I mean, these guys were as thick as thieves when the pandemic happened. They were talking to each other. They were on IG Lives, having a blast, talking about gender wars and all of this jazz. But then See the Thing Is would launch on the Joe Budden Network. And boy, was there a lot of drama. Sure, everybody remembers Olivia Dope, but the real tension that happened later on was between Mandy, Bridget, and Joe when they were discussing the splits and how Mandy likely felt they weren't getting paid well enough because, they weren't allowed to air commercials on the Joe Budden Network, as if she didn't know that was what's going to happen because Joe Budden didn't even do commercials on the Joe Budden Network. So she was basically just playing the game, and I think she tried to play Joe, but she quickly figured out Joe had someone in his corner that she didn't account for, and that's Ian Schwartzman, because when Mandy and Bridget left the Joe Budden Network, they would have to kick back profits from the show in order to do a split. And I think that's why she was so bitter on her exit throughout the doors of the Joe Budden Network. I think she believed Joe had made a bunch of promises and assurances, and they even had some gripe because they said that they held Joe Budden down during the whole Olivia Dope situation. They remained on the network, and Joe didn't look out for them. But I honestly think Joe he was done with that. The numbers probably weren't numbering, and that was the end of that chapter. But let me know what you think. Is Mandy pocket watching? We got to look at how Mandy's playing, man. Ever since her departure from the Joe Budden Network, she has seemingly become besties with everybody on the show except Melissa Ford. I mean, she's cool with Imani. I tell this story all the time. When I interviewed Imani, he called Mandy on the iPhone and FaceTime her with me. Then you have Mandy and Ish, who seemingly hang out all the time. Ish even capes for her on the show. There's even footage of Mandy and Ice hanging out. And I think Joe knows, man, Mandy is feeding the cast information about how business should be run. Oh, make sure Joe's taking care of you guys. Make sure you get in this part of the business. Make sure, you're looking at your Patreon splits and all of that jazz. Hell, I even forgot Mandy and Flip used to be cool and they used to talk all the time. Mandy is heavily invested in whoever sits on that couch. And it's something we are going to have to monitor. I'm letting you know I'm monitoring it as well. All right, I wanted to end this video by talking about the need to know. Apparently, they took some shots at me, and also they took some shots at, I'm going to say it, Homeroom University, but they beeped us out. I'm not going to play it because, quite honestly, I don't want to put y'all to sleep. I mean, I was at work, right, listening to the episode, and I fell asleep. And my supervisor came over and she was like, "Hey, Danny, what the hell is your problem? Why are you falling asleep on the job?" And I told her I was listening to the Need to Know, and she completely understood. She was like, "Oh, you listening to that podcast? Oh my God, I fall asleep all the time when I'm listening to that podcast." So she understood. She knew Savon, Reggie, Alex, and that other dude off camera. They don't really know how to keep people awake. So she completely understood. She was fine with it. But I was able to stay up. I drank a Red Bull right after in order to keep me from falling asleep again. And I listened to the remainder of the episode, and they took shots at me along with Ian Dunlop. Shout out to Ian, man. I know you're trying to find your way. You're trying to get your North Star. And you got to go to the GZ level G League, which is the Need to Know, in order to find your footing so you can feel better about how tough it's going at the Joe Budden podcast. I get it. You probably made a ton of money. You invested a lot. You helped the community, blah, blah, blah. That spiel when you don't want to address your underperforming ways on the Joe Budden podcast. But hey, it's still a struggle. Invest Fest, Struggle Fest, I say. And to the Need to Know, calling me weird, I'm happy you did. I'm sorry, guys. I run this thing by myself. I make the choices. I make the decisions. I make the thumbnails. It looks like you guys hired some good people over at Fiverr. I know you guys stopped your podcast a couple of times. And it's hard out here, right? And now people are charging consultation fees for podcasting, profiting off the hopes and dreams of people whose podcasts probably never take off. But I just wanted to address that. Make sure you listen to Ian Dunlop do the opposite of give it up. I like to call that keeping it in the tuck for another time when he's going to give it up, hopefully someday. I mean, these guys were supposed to do a segment where they list out the podcasters they don't like and they just bleeped everybody. Shout out to y'all. Great content. And let's not even talk about how Savon says he got in the game. He was tweeting Joe Budden like, "Yo, put me down, son." And eventually got put down. He was kind of a background character, and now he's taking shots at me. Shout out to them. I really don't got no beef with the Need to Snooze. I mean, the Need to Know. Y'all my people. I think y'all dope. I honestly say that with a lot of integrity. I mean that. I'm just firing back because, they're bleeping me out. They're shooing at me. They're talking about I got a lane. Well, your lane is the slow lane. Only go 25 miles in that joint. All right, y'all. Let's see who else pops off on the Need to Know. I'm curious to see what they say because they also shot at them. Hey, man, I know we had odds, but, I would like to see you shoot your, I don't want to say the word, somewhere else. Let's see how you get down because back when we was talking, man, you guys really got at them. And I wouldn't mind to see that again. All right, y'all. Follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. Follow me on Patreon, The Stop. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.